Why did it not happen, Frank? Who slipped up?
Well, I think you just heard from us, was it? I mean, why was we wasting all this time negotiating? I mean, if he wasn't ready, was it 2 weeks ago when it all fell out of bed, and then he certainly wasn't ready the month before when we started negotiating. It's just, we just wasted a lot of time on this, a lot of time. And Tyson could have been fighting on November the 12th, where we were originally going to be, but we, as I say, we wasted so much time on this.
When you look behind him, I listen to Frank Smith and he says, we couldn't have got things done. Now, I don't understand what that means, because if there's a will, there's a way. And if you've got the will, then ultimately you'll find the way. I kind of felt, without, sort of blowing smoke up your backside because you're sat here, that it was incumbent upon them to move heaven and earth, because they were the ones that have been given an opportunity.
And 40%.
And 40%. So when you look at it, they talk about the timelines and the scheduling, and George came on the other day, your son, talking about the lack of response from them. When you evaluate it, do you think, I think the fighter wanted it, but do you think that Matchroom and 258 wanted this fight for Anthony Joshua?
At the end of the day, everything is the fighter's decision.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one at the end of the day says, look, get this deal done. This is what I want. These are the terms I want to get to. And we more or less got to the terms. There was one outstanding point, which was about an arbitrator, and we suggested IMG. You know the story.
I do. Yeah.
Cut a long story short, they didn't suggest anybody else. So that was the end of everything, end of negotiations.
And this arbitrator had done work for Matchroom as well as yourselves, hadn't he?
Well, if they didn't, Matchroom and BT and DAZN. But even if they didn't want him, they never suggested anybody else. But the bottom line of all of this is that, I honestly believed it was going to happen. I got to the stage where I thought we're going to get this over the line, and then Tyson kept saying to me, they are not going to do this, because all I'm going to do every day is going back to him and telling him how the negotiations are going.
But it wasn't helpful, though, was it, for anybody, for Tyson to keep repeatedly coming out and setting ultimates? Because whilst you got to get things done,
I don't agree. Whilst he was doing that, we were all still talking. And everybody acknowledges that we were talking, but Tyson was getting fed up with it all, and he was right at the end of the day. And it cost me £10,000, the bet I had with him. So he was 100% right, and he said he will not go for this, Joshua, and that's how it's.
Will it always be a top regret of yours, Frank, that you couldn't get this all-British classic match-up going?
Massively, because what was such a disappointment, because we're not naive. I've been in this business for a long time, but I genuinely thought it was going to happen.
Do you think, Frank, that now we didn't get that fight at this time, it will ever happen?
No.
You think it's done?
AJ's got to come back, and he said, Frank called him Frank Smith. He's got a couple of fights to get himself back into a situation. He's got to win those fights. And I think he's very vulnerable, and I wouldn't be surprised and I don't being disrespectful to him, I wouldn't be surprised of any fight that he loses now, because I just think he's a very beatable fighter.
Are you telling us this morning, Frank, we're never going to see Fury AJ?
Tyson's comes, provided there's no hiccups, Tyson comes through the third, he's going to fight Usyk, and then after that he may wind up fighting Joyce.
Wow. It's always going to be a huge regret for boxing fans, Simon. Is it not, Spencer, that they're never going to see this matchup? We were all led to believe it was happening, Frank. There's no point now in apportioning blame. That's over. That's past. It's not happening, so it's not happening. But if the boxing world will always think, well, I wonder who would have won that night.
Well, I think we know who would have won. I think the other side, if they thought they were going to win, they would have gone with the fight.
Well, you're obviously going to say Tyson. And they'll obviously say Fury. But it's the fight fans who suffer.
I understand that. But now we're moving on to a situation as well where, if he has the Usyk fight, then all the mandatories are going to kick in. So that's where we're at. And he won't be in any mandatory position because he's not in the number 1 or number 2 space to be for a vacant title. So he's I don't know. Well, listen, that's their problem, not mine. And it's not our fault or Tyson's fault this fight did not happen. It's not our fault, 100%.
So that seems to be the roadmap, Spencer, by the sounds of it, from what Frank's saying. Fury, if he goes on and beats Chisora, then Usyk, and he beats him, and then Joyce.
Absolutely. I think that we felt that we were so close to getting the AJ fight, and now it's further away than ever. I don't think that fight will ever happen now. For whatever reason, I was speaking to Anthony Joshua in the build-up to that fight. It was a fight that he was quite vocal about saying that he definitely wanted that fight. It was a great opportunity for him. The 40% was like a gift from the heavens. You know, everything seemed to be going in the right direction, and then it just sort of collapsed at the final hour, which is a shame because, like I say, Anthony Joshua's now going to take his own path to where he needs to get to try and get a title shot. But if you look at the landscape of the heavyweight division at the moment and what's going on in the fights that are lined up, Anthony Joshua could be frozen out for some time.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.